Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a book haul of every single book I've bought since the new year started. Now, because we have changed locales, the cats might be in and out. They might be making noise. Please forgive them, although if you're a cat person, I'm sure that it's appreciated. But with that being said, we are swiftly running out of daylight, so I want to just go ahead and get started. Now, I will say, I do not typically buy this many books. It's just that with my Christmas money and then the fact that Book Outlet had a $5.99 fiction sale, I kind of went a little bit crazy. And then I did acquire some books from other sources like Amazon and Target and thrifting that I will also go over. Let's start with the books I have gotten from my subscription box. So I have the Fairy Loot YA and Adult combo subscription, just book only. For the adult book, they did Immortal by Sue Lynn Tan for January. Now, I loved Daughter of the Moon Goddess and Heart of the Sun Warrior, so I was super excited to get this. I originally was going to pre-order it, and then when I saw on Book Eater's blog that this was going to be the adult book for January, I went ahead and canceled my pre-order. But this edition is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, look at the naked hardcover. But they also did Cruel is the Light by Sophie Clark for their YA book. And if you look at these sprayed edges, these are gorgeous. But this I actually don't know much about, nor have I read anything by Sophie Clark before. But I am really excited. I've heard some positive reviews so far, so this will be a very exciting read when I get to it. And of course, my February box has not arrived yet, even though I'm filming this in the beginning of March. So you win some, you lose some. It is what it is. And then from a local bookstore, I picked up Zodiac Academy secondhand. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen this in my March TBR. It is on my list of books to read this month. It will be in a vlog coming up, but I was fortunate enough to pick it up secondhand. I also was fortunate enough to be able to find it in the original covers, which I actually prefer to the new covers. I know some people are a pretty big fan of the new covers, but I am all over these old covers. So then let's get into what I got from Book Outlet. Now, here's the thing. Book Outlet is a wonderful way to buy books inexpensively at a discount. However, they are books that Book Outlet gets from retailers like Target and Walmart and Meijer and other stores that either they're damaged or they are no longer on the shelf and they're phasing them out, or it's basically overstock, as well as overstock from publishers. So sometimes the books that you get are not in great condition. Now, is that the case most of the time? No, I would say about 98% of the books I've received, I've ordered probably like 200 or 300 books at this point from them. 98% of the books are in perfectly acceptable condition to me, and I'm kind of picky about what books I bring home. However, sometimes you will get a one-off and the dust jacket will be ripped, or the pages will be creased, or like a little corner will have been munched out of the spine. So just, if you're going to use Book Outlet, it's a wonderful retailer. However, you need to know that it will not 100% of the time be perfect. Now, for our first book from Book Outlet, I picked up Shadowcaster by Cinda Williams Chima. Now, this is the second book in the Shattered Realms Quartet. This series is preceded by the Seven Realms Quartet. They are all YA, but to be honest, I highly, highly recommend them. I loved them. They were one of the few series that I absolutely binge read in college, that I was setting aside time to read. But that being said, you have to read the first quartet because the second quartet follows the children of the characters from the first. So if you read the second set or this set of books, you will in fact spoil yourself for the first one. But it follows a queendom, which I thought was kind of a unusual concept. I haven't seen a lot of fantasies where the kingdom that is at the focal point is specifically a queendom. There have been obviously less and less of female rulers, but this particular throne is passed through the matriarchal line. So very cool. And then for another book trophy, I have Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine. I absolutely adored her books as a child. I loved Fairest. I, of course, loved Ella Enchanted. So I figured that I would pick up a copy just to kind of have around, just in case I ever got the itch to reread a childhood favorite. But I was a voracious reader as a kid, and I borrowed a lot of my books from the library, which means that as an adult, I do not have a lot of my favorite books in physical form. So I picked it up. Now, I am a woman of principle. However, in the last 2 months, I have absolutely thrown my principles out the window when it comes to book buying. I have a personal rule not to buy a sequel unless I have read the first book and enjoyed the first book. And I also have a personal rule not to buy an entire series without having read at least the first 2 books and enjoying them. So, with that being said, I bought a lot of series and sequels in this haul that I really shouldn't have. The first one being Wildbound, which is the sequel to Forestborn. I can't really speak too much on this series. I just thought the synopsis sounded really interesting on Book Outlet for Forestborn. And of course, when they were doing their $5.99 sale and the sequel came up, I just had to snatch it up. I do like binging series, so it is kind of nice to have the second book if I enjoyed the first one. However, you're kind of out if you did not enjoy the first one. So I'm risking it here, but we'll see how it goes. And then I picked up A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmer. Now, I don't know much about this book either. You're going to find that's a very common theme here. It was on my radar, but it's been on my radar for so long that I do not recall why it was on my radar in the first place. So I am excited about this. I do also have the first book in the Defy the Night series, whatever that series is called, and I am excited to get to it, as well as this one. And then, like I said, I'm just violating all my principles here. I picked up Sunbringer, which is the sequel to Godkiller. I have not read Godkiller either. I am very excited about it. I am a little trepidatious about it because I don't really see a lot of fantasies being so short very often, but it would be kind of cool if it did work out, because then you can kind of just fly through them. Although I have heard that this is a little bit dense, so we shall see. And then I have another book trophy, which is A Court of Mist and Fury. This is the second book in the ACOTAR series, as I'm sure you guys all know that because this book and this series in general is everywhere. But I really, really enjoyed ACOTAR. It is not my favorite SJM series. That honor would go to Throne of Glass. That is a 6-star series. That is a Forever Love series. But I did enjoy this series, but I do kind of wish that she had stopped at A Court of Wings and Ruin. I did not love A Court of Frost and Starlight, nor did I love A Court of Silver Flames. Maybe that's kind of an unpopular opinion. However, I found that A Court of Silver Flames probably could have accomplished the same thing in like half as many pages. It's a little frustrating personally to read an 800-page book where it's just a montage of training and sex scenes and self-loathing. So I struggled a little bit with that one. I also don't think it helped that I listened to it on audiobook, and that, I don't tend to enjoy spicy books via audio. It feels a little weird to have someone reading out sex scenes to you, but that's just my personal opinion. I'm going to set this aside because this was actually a Target purchase. I want to go through kind of by origin. And then I picked up Foxglove by Adeline Grace. This is the second book to the Belladonna series. I don't know if it has its own name or if it just goes by Belladonna. Now, I am very excited to get into Belladonna. I've heard great things about it. I will say I have heard that people have very polarizing opinions about this book. Some people kind of love the direction it took from the first book, and some people did not see the perspective shift coming, is what I understand, if it is a perspective shift. But I think that's why people were so upset. And then I have Bloodmarked by Tracy Dion. This is the sequel to Legendborn. Now, I have actually picked up Legendborn and I read the first couple of chapters, but I was not in the mood for it. And I've heard such great things about it that I didn't want my mood to be the reason why I didn't rate it highly. So I did put it down, but I do have plans to pick it back up. But I am super excited to get into that series. And then these two were also Target, so we'll put those aside. We have even more book outlet. And there she goes. So the next book I have is This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. I'm gonna, God, take a drink for every time I say I've heard wonderful things about this book. This book is about a woman who is post-divorce, working through her relationship with her ex and her co-parent. I think it's kind of wonderful that Kennedy Ryan wrote a more mature FMC. So I am most definitely, you good, girl? So I am most definitely looking forward to reading that. And with that being said, because I have heard such wonderful things about Kennedy Ryan, I also decided to pick up the Hoops trilogy, which is her sports romance trilogy, following, I believe, basketball players. And then I picked up Hooked and Wretched by Emily McIntyre. This is book 1 and book 3, respectively, of the Never After series, which is a dark romance retelling of Disney villains. I have not picked up a single one, but I am thrilled to have them all on hand and to just kind of, they might be good reads for 24-hour readathons or something like that. And then I have Twisted Games, Twisted Hate, and Twisted Lies, which is books 2, 3, and 4 of the Twisted series by Anna Huang. Now, I have a mixed relationship with Anna Huang. I have read every single book that's out in the Kings of Sin series, and while I enjoyed King of Wrath, my enjoyment has kind of petered the further we've gotten into it. So she might be one of those authors where you only read them, at least for me, once in a while, because they do kind of fulfill like a certain itch, but maybe not one that I like read prolifically or I like go through her back catalog slowly. So I have read the first 2 books. I hauled Twisted Love prior to the start of the new year, so it's not in this video, but I have read that book and Twisted Games in the month of January. And I think I rated them both somewhere between 3 and 3.5, 4 stars, somewhere in there. And then I picked up First Down and Stealing Home, which is books 2 and 3 in the Beyond the Play series. Now, I'm a little anxious about this because I have seen Ellen Catherine read the first book, First Down, and she did not enjoy it, and she and I have fairly similar bookish tastes. So we'll see how it goes, but they are sports romances, and I do love me a good sports romance. And then that is the thrifted pile. So and that was from Target. I think the rest of these are all from Book Outlet. So we shall continue. I have The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland. I was going to say Kristen Sutherland for some reason. But I have The Invocations. Now, this book came recommended by Katie is Reading. It is a good spooky read, is what I've heard. So I'm going to save it for fall. But she also did say that there's something about like black goo, and I am like highly squeamish. So I'm really hoping that that does not feature greatly, or if it is, it's not described in great detail. And then I have Of Jade and Dragons by Amber Chen. I do not really know anything about this book, beyond the fact that I believe it's based in Chinese mythology. Yes. But the cover caught my eye, and I do have a tendency to enjoy books that are based in Chinese, Japanese, and Korean culture. So I figured I would give it a try, and we'll see how that goes. And then I have a book trophy, which is Ashes in the Starkhurst King, which is the second or third, if you count Six Scorched Roses, book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I have been deeply enjoying this series. It is kind of like Hunger Games meets vampires meets like royalty. I have deeply enjoyed it so far. I have not gotten a chance to read the Songbird and the Heart of Stone, which is the latest book coming out, but I'm hoping to get to it in one of my finishing slash catching up in series I'm in the middle of. And then I have the Spell Shop, which has beautiful purple sprayed edges. But I'm going to be real honest here. The sole reason I picked this up is because there is a sentient spider plant in here, and I am a spider plant mom. I have two. One is named Spidey, and one is named Junior. And the reason I have such love for them is I am a horrible plant parent. A lot of what I bring home dies in my care, and spider plants seem to tolerate my form of neglect. So, with that being said, I am very excited to read about a sentient spider plant of all things. And then I have Threads That Bind. Do not know much about it, but thought that it could be really interesting. And then I have Five Broken Blades by Mai Corland. Becca in the books read this in one of her Shelve It or Scrap It and enjoyed it. I have heard the criticism that it kind of pulls from a lot of different stories and it's not a very original work. However, if it is enjoyable, it's enjoyable. Plus, I thought that the sprayed edges were kind of cool, so I figured I would pick it up, and if I enjoy it, great. If I don't, it gets donated and somebody else will love it. And then I picked up The Wren and the Holly Library, which I have also not heard much about, but I thought that it would be kind of interesting. It says on the front, she broke the monster treaty and he'll make her pay. So, little blurb caught my eye and I figured, why not? And then we're getting down to it, my friends. I'm trying to do the speed run of it because that way the lighting will still be good. I think this. Okay. These are the last of the books from Book Outlet, and then we'll go into the other retailers. Not me dropping books everywhere. Now, there is the one and only sci-fi book that I picked up, The Deep Sky. Now, this is another book that has been on my radar so long I can no longer remember why it caught my attention in the first place. However, I am excited to read it, so we will get there at some point. And then I picked up Isabel and the Rogue, which is the second book in the Luna Sisters series. I'm not sure how many there's going to be in the end, but the first book really caught my attention, and I figured that if I enjoyed that one, I would enjoy this one, and I might as well pick it up while they had it in stock. That's kind of the other thing about Book Outlet. Their stock fluctuates. So you could like a book or favorite a book and be waiting for a sale. And then when the sale comes around, it's no longer in stock. So I kind of have a tendency to just grab what I see that I'm interested in while it is in stock. And then I have That Time I Got Drunk and Needed a Love Potion at a Werewolf. Now, I have been so interested in this series. This is the second book in the Mead Mishap trilogy. And to be honest, the titles are what caught my eye. And then I have seen people read them and say that they were a fun time. And I have been waiting to find them somewhere that they would be cheaper because everywhere else I was seeing them, they were like $18. And then they popped up, all three of them, on Book Outlet. So I snatched them up. The first two I got prior to the new year, so they're not in this video. I'm sorry, the first and the third one I got prior to the new year, so they're not in this video, but I do have them. And then I picked up All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. Now I've heard she's the absolute queen of slow burn romance, so I wanted to give her books a try and figured I would start with this one. And then I picked up The Spare by Ava Rani. Now, this book is the book that I mentioned when I was like, oh my God, I have a book on the way that would be perfect for the prompt of a book you bought only because of the cover. However, I have since read the back, and it has been marketed as Gossip Girl meets Succession, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. And it is a pretty skinny book, so I'm sure I will absolutely fly through it when the time comes. And then I picked up Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto, which is about a romance between two musicians. and a internet darling, Archer's Voice. It might be sacrilege to say, but I have not read this book, and now I have a copy so I can get to it. And then we have another Becca in the Books influenced purchase, which is Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma. This is about two doctors who enter into a marriage of convenience, but apparently they have some history with each other. If you see an orange cat right here, that's Bean. He has deigned to join us finally. And then I have a book trophy, which is Flawless by Elsie Silver. I have read the entire Chestnut Spring series. I did enjoy all of them. The last one was not my favorite, so I will probably just pick up a copy of the first 4 books, which I, of course, started with right here. But I figure if it's an interconnected standalone and you don't love it, you really don't need to buy it or keep it on your shelf. The desire, for me at least, to have a complete set of the series is not strong enough for me to buy a book that I didn't really love and will probably never reread. And then I have Well Traveled by Jen DeLuca, which is part of the Well Matched series. Well Played. It's Well Matched, Well Played, Well Traveled, Well Met. But they are romances surrounding Ren Fair. So I thought that that would be really cool. I did go to Ren Fair a couple times growing up and I really enjoyed it. So I figured, why not read some romances about it? Plus, I believe it's Cassandra Reads really loves this series, and I always love a good recommendation. And then we will, thank you, ma'am, Goddess of Destruction. And then from there, we have the last 2 books in the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. Now, these were purchased begrudgingly, not because I didn't enjoy this series. I deeply enjoyed this series, and oh my gosh, aren't these covers gorgeous? However, they are pricey as heck because they are indie published. And Carissa Broadbent recently announced that they are being trad published, and with that, they will be getting a makeover and new cover art, which means that these covers will be going away. And I have the first book in hardcover in this cover art, and therefore, in order to get a matching set, my hand was kind of forced, and I purchased them instead of waiting and asking for them for like a birthday or a Christmas gift. So, bit of a bummer on that one, but you know, it is what it is, and I am thrilled to own them. I'm just not excited that they were like $35. And then we have all the books that I purchased from Target. This was prompted by Target's buy one, get one 50% off sale on books that they seem to do like quarterly-ish. But with that being said, our first one was Deep End by Allie Hazelwood. If you are interested in my thoughts on this book, it is in my reading wrap-up for last month. But I did, spoiler, enjoy it. And it is about a diver and a swimmer and their romance. And then we have First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I loved the Lovelight Farms series, so I figured a retelling of Sleepless in Seattle by one of my favorite romance authors would be great. So I picked it up, and I am dying to get to it. Hopefully, I will be able to pull it in my April TBR, because it did not end up on my March TBR, sad to say. And then we have Binding 13 and Keeping 13. Now, Binding 13 I actually got from Book Outlet, and then Keeping 13 I picked up from Target. I was successfully able to get the first, third, fourth, and fifth book from Book Outlet, but they just did not have Keeping 13 in stock, and it was really bothering me that there was a gap. So I have picked up the second book from Target. I have not read the series. However, it is, in fact, an internet darling, and I am really interested. I am a little put off by the fact that the font is absolutely tiny, and so are the margins. So I'm sure that while they look not unreasonably thick, they are tall paperbacks, and the font being as small as it is means that these will take a hot minute to get through. We are losing our stack. Okay. And then I have You with a View by Jessica Joyce. This is a book trophy. I have already read this book. I am very interested in picking up The X-Files, which is the next book that she wrote after this one. But this one follows a girl who, while mourning her grandmother, finds out that her grandmother had a relationship prior to her relationship with her grandfather. And she's kind of baffled because her grandfather was kind of, in her mind, her grandma's one true love. And so she's kind of baffled to find out that her grandmother had a love before her grandfather. And so she decides to embark on a trip with the man her grandmother was in love with as a young woman prior to meeting her grandfather. And that being said, the man's grandson comes along with her. They happen to know each other and dislike each other. So it is a dislike to love on a road trip romance. And then we have Behind the Net and The Fake Out by Stephanie Archer. These are book trophies. I have, in fact, already read this series. I am caught up and very excited for Gloves Off to come out in a couple months. I believe it's 2 months, maybe. But the Vancouver Storm series is one of my favorite sports romance series. I would say it probably ranks number 2. Number 1 being, of course, the Windy City series. I loved every single book in that series, including Mile High, which is, I realize, is an unpopular opinion, but that is just me. And then I picked up the third book in the Sacred Stones trilogy, which is A Reign of Rose by Kate Golden. I'm not going to speak too much on this book. I have already read it. It is in my February reading wrap up if you want my thoughts. But A Dawn of Onyx follows a healer who gets kidnapped when her brother brings trouble home with him. And of course, she is forced to work as a healer out of the dungeons of the Kingdom of Onyx. And in doing so, she gets embroiled in their politics and she, of course, meets somebody. And then we have Rebel Witch, which I have also read already and is in my February reading wrap up. So if you want my thoughts on that, it is in that video. But I have loved the Crimson Moth duology and would highly recommend you read it if you are on the fence. All right, we are down to just the books I have thrifted. Now, this is usually where I get most of my books. I tend to thrift most of my books. With that being said, I got books 1, 3, and 7 in the series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. This was a childhood favorite series and kind of falls in that category of I read it as a kid, loved it, but it came from the library, and so I didn't have a physical copy. And now that I'm an adult, I would like a physical copy. And that also applies to books 1, 2, and I believe this is book 5 of the Artemis Fowl series. I loved this series as a kid. Even as an adult, I highly recommend you read it. It is following a child genius who gets himself into all sorts of scrapes with the fairies, which kind of, in this world, fairies is a like broad definition that covers pixies and sprites and dwarves and just all kinds of creatures. So fairies is kind of more of like a general term for magical creatures. But our titular character gets himself into plenty of scrapes. Now, I already have all of these books. However, I kind of collected them hodgepodge as a child. So I have them in like mass market paperback and full size paperback and hardcover. So I've been kind of slowly acquiring the hardcovers in the old cover art. So there is new cover art for this series, but it follows kind of like that cartoon style of art. And there is nostalgia in the old covers for me. So I have been hunting them down and snatching them up as they have come across my path. And then I picked up a novel love story by Ashley Poston. I loved The Dead Romantics. I rated that book 5 stars. I have unfortunately not heard as great of things of this book, but the concept is just fascinating enough that I still want to give it a try. You know, who wouldn't love to end up in the world of your favorite book? And then I picked up A Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson, which is the first book in the duology after the Remnant Chronicles trilogy. Sorry, Bean is, I'm suspicious. He's my troublemaker. But I had kind of meh feelings about the Remnant Chronicles trilogy, but I heard such great things about the duology, and I also heard that if you just read the duology, you would be spoiled for the trilogy. So I figured I would just bite the bullet, read the trilogy. If I didn't love it, that was fine, but it would set me up to read this book and its sequel. And then we have a book trophy, which is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This thing is a beast. I cannot believe that it is not 1,000 pages. I think it's somewhere in like the 700 range, actually. Like 800-ish. Like, it's a brick. You could, knock someone out with this thing. But I really liked this book, so I figured I would enjoy it having a physical copy of it in case I wanted to reread it. The plot is, it's definitely high fantasy, so I don't want to go too much into the plot because I would be here for forever, but, worth the read, but just know you're in it for the long haul. And then I picked up Jade War by Fonda Lee, which is the second book in the Greenbone saga, which is a trilogy. I have already read Jade City and I enjoyed it, and I wanted to have a physical copy of it. So when the sequel was at the thrift shop, I figured I would just pick it up. That way I could just go into it when I was ready. I will eventually acquire the first and third books, but it was there, so I figured I would pick it up while it was, at my fingertips. And then the last book of our haul is Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro, which is also kind of a honky boy. We are kind of, the last couple books were just chonkers. But that brings us to the end of the haul. Please know, like I said, that this is an unusual circumstance. I am very lucky that I had the resources to buy so many books. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to stick around, please subscribe. Either way, thank you for joining me. I hope you have a good day. Bye!